What if your life and your relationships, you're like an artist and you walk in and you have this blank canvas and you have all of these different, utensils that you can paint, you can draw, you can do whatever it is you like. You start choosing what is true for you. Stop choosing your relationships based on everybody else. This is your life. This is your choice. How did you grow up looking at relationships? Were you surrounded by good relationships? Did you always desire to have a relationship? And when I ask you these questions, you may or may not have, something that pops up. The way access works is when you ask a question, there's an energy that shows up. You may actually have some verbiage. You may actually have some words that describe that energy, or it just might be an energy that pops up. When I ask you these questions, it's like, what pops up in your world? I know, we grew up with so many of these movies, and, we start with the fairy tale movies, and you're like, oh my goodness, how many girls want, a man to come along on their white horse and save them and be Prince Charming. And then, a man's looking at it, and does he want a damsel in distress? Or, all of these stories that we grow up with. What did you think relationship was meant to be for you? Notice how even when I ask you that question, you're sort of like, "Ooh, I'm not sure. I haven't even asked myself that question." And for me, I remember when I met Gary Douglas, who's the founder of Access Consciousness, I was talking to him about relationships and I was talking to him about sex, right? Now, I want to get clear straight off. You have relationships and you have sex. They do not have to go together. And everybody lumps relationships and sex together. Now, they can work really well together. It's just like money and business can work well together, but business and money is what people always put in the same box as well, and that's not necessarily so. Okay, so you look at relationships as one thing and you look at sex as another thing. And okay, so I like to give a little bit of home play every now and then. So your first home play, I would say, is have a look at what you would like in a relationship, if you would like it, like whatever it comes up for you. And then also with sex, like do two separate, pieces of paper and write down what that is that you would like. One for relationships and one for sex. You may be in a relationship, you may not be in a relationship, you may be having a fabulous time in a relationship or a fabulous time single, or you may have, multiple people that you're playing with. There could be any situation. But take a moment, take a breath, and go, if I was choosing my reality with relationships, what would I choose? And you don't need to show anyone. This is not like, it's not going to be corrected by a teacher. You just need to have a look at what is true for you. And that is what I would like to show up, is you start choosing what is true for you. Okay? Not what everybody else has done, what is true for you. And the same thing with sex. Okay. What is it that you would like sex to be for you? Okay. Now, like I said, when I was having this conversation with Gary Douglas many years ago, I said something about like, I don't do relationships. And he was like, okay. And he said, how come? And I said, I don't see a good one. So why would I choose one? And what I started to look at was, I mean, there's no question in that, right? I was totally in conclusion. I was like, no, don't see a good one. Why would I choose one? I'm out, sort of thing. And I used to be very, very good at doing, actually, a couple of people used to call me 3-month wonder, because I would be in a relationship with someone for 3 months. And then I was like, okay, I'm done. But in truth, I was so enjoying that 3 months with someone, first off, having sex and playing and being in that energy. And then after about 3 months, it would start to go down that road of getting, okay, so where are we heading? And I was like, what do you mean, where are we heading? Why do we have to head somewhere? Why can't it just be today? And so how many of you play into this role of you've been with somebody for a certain amount of time, therefore that means. And then, if you start living together, when are you getting married? You get married. When are you having kids? You have one kid. When are you having the next kid? Like there seems to be this, unwritten or written law of how you are meant to be in relationships, rather than creating it as you would like. So Gary asked me a few questions about this, and I realized I was not looking at what I would like. I was looking around me for a reference. And who's the first people you look at for a reference in relationships? It's usually your parents. That's what you grow up with, right? You grow up with your mum and dad. And, nowadays, it's very rare to have two people who are married and have kids and they're still together and happily ever after, way into their years. So you grow up with whatever has gone on in your household, that becomes your like this role model, even though you don't even realize it. Is it, abuse? Is it gaslighting? Is it controlling? Is it, what is it? And some of you may actually have a really great family. And if you do, please celebrate that because it's not a common thing, okay? So, and then you'll look at, your friends, and then you look at your friends and the people around you, and you start to look at the relationships they're choosing. And that's what I was doing. I was looking around and going, wow, I don't see any relationship that I would be like, yeah, I'd like that. So I concluded I don't do relationships. Okay. How many conclusions have you gone to in regards to relationships and in regards to you in relationships? So again, if you were choosing your reality with relationships, what would you choose? What would work for you? And you may not have any idea right now, and that's okay. It's actually a really good place to start. A great place to start is when you have a blank canvas, like what if your life and your relationships, you're like an artist and you walk in and you have this blank canvas and you have all of these different, utensils that you can paint, you can draw, you can do whatever it is you like. This is your life. This is your choice. Stop choosing your relationships based on everybody else. So access consciousness, right? There is so many tools in access, like a godzillion. And a godzillion is the number that is so big, only God knows, right? It's a joke. It changes all the time. I mean, I've been using access consciousness tools for 24 years. And I know myself that I wouldn't be around if it didn't change, because every single one of you that comes along and asks a question, makes a different choice, you open up a different door. So the way it works also is right now, okay, whatever your point of view is with relationship, okay, so you look at your point of view in relationship. Now, hopefully, you'll start to look at it in a slightly different angle. So even right now, it's like you're on Zoom, you're looking at your computer screens, etc., wherever you are, your phone. It's like even just look like this is your world right now, and now take a little look to the right and it's like, what do you see? Do you see a different perspective? Okay. And then you come back here. That's what this is about. Every time you ask a question, every time you use the access consciousness clearing statement and get a little bit free on something, you start to look at things from a different perspective. So that conversation I had with Gary many, many years ago changed my perspective because he was like, why are you looking at everybody else for a reference point? And I realized I was. So then I had to be vulnerable and ask myself, okay, do I actually desire a relationship? Am I resisting it? Because that's what a lot of people do too, is they have the righteousness of being single. How many of you have the righteousness of being single? You're like, I'm single and I'm proud, like this sort of thing, like I don't need anybody. And you have this energy. And then how many of you have the righteousness of being in a relationship? I'm in a relationship. See, I'm wanted. I am desired. Neither of them are right and neither of them are wrong. They are a choice. And trust me, I've done both. It's like my last long-term relationship, at one point, I was definitely doing the rightness of my relationship. And then when we broke up, I was doing the rightness of breaking up a relationship. And then I was doing the rightness of being single. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is like hard work. Okay. So how much energy and how much hard work are you putting into the rightness of what you are currently choosing? Now, here's a second question. How many of you are trying to prove the rightness of what you are currently choosing, not for you, but for others? You go to your family or something like that, and they're like, oh, she's still single. Like, I remember going to a family gathering once, and I overheard my mother say, oh, she'll be happy when she finds the one. And I was like, Are you kidding me? I just spent all these years like on this adventure, traveling all over the world. I was the happiest person I knew in our family. But to her, you can't truly be happy unless you're in a relationship. That was her definition of happy. Now, my mother and father, I personally do not think that they had a great relationship. They may have at the beginning, but I grew up with my mother yelling at my father all the time, like controlling him to an extent that was like horrifying. There was quite a few times I was like, Dad, why are you with her? But he was a devout Catholic, and to him, he made that choice and he had to stay with her. So that's what he chose, right? And my mother chose that. But that's the household I grew up in. I grew up in with my father was always empowering. He always said to me, Simone, it's your life. You need to choose. I'll be here for you, but you have to choose. My mother saying, why are you choosing that? That's embarrassing. What am I going to tell my friends? So I sort of had the antithesis of these two people that I grew up with. And how many of you had this diversity that you grew up with in your families and you're like, and then you're trying to prove what it is you're choosing to be the rightness or the wrongness. And of course, I was always trying to please my mother because she was the one that was mean and disempowering, whereas my father was like, okay, I'm here, you know. But I didn't have to please him because he just really was grateful for me and loved me as a father, you know, could and should. You do not have to prove that you're happy. You can just be happy. And your happy is going to be very different from everybody else. Okay. You are unique unto yourself. Stop trying to pretend that you are like everybody else because you're not. We're all so different. And we keep trying to pretend that we're the same and trying to put ourselves into this, you know, this same box. So you grow up with these expectations and projections that, like I said, could be verbal or they could just be energetic. And those energetic projections and expectations is quite often how we end up then moving forward and creating our lives. But they are not for us, they are for other people. But this is the way access consciousness works. It's like these tools, these questions are designed to get you out of the insane points of view that you function from. And like I said before, the insane point of view I had was I cannot reference a good relationship. Why would I choose one? But that is taking it out of my choice. And you have choice. You have infinite choice. You have infinite choice. There is no end to choosing. So whatever you're currently choosing right now, you can choose again. And I would like you all to get that relationship should be a choice, not a necessity.